You are listening to Fragments of History, a podcast series that looks at different events and people in the life of Saint Josemaria under History of Opus Dei. Girona, Hinojosa de Jarque, and Santa Maria de Luneda are the starting point for three unknown testimonies of dedication to others. The historian Santiago Martinez brought us an account of three members of the Priestly Society of the Holy Cross, founded by Saint Josemaria in 1943, and to which more than 4,000 clerics from all over the world belong today.
Saint Josemaria founded the Priestly Society of the Holy Cross, composed of clerics and indissolubly linked to Opus Dei in 1943. Until then, Opus Dei was made up only of laymen and women, ordinary people. To help them better, Opus Dei priests were needed who knew and lived this message, who came from within the ranks of the work itself. That is why the first members of the society were numerary members. That is to say, celibate men of Opus Dei who were ordained priests and to whom the founder gave his pastoral assignments. In 1950, to also help the diocesan clergy, Saint Josemaria asked the Holy See to allow priests incardinated in the diocese to join the Priestly Society, and the response was positive. These priests, of whom we are going to speak in this episode, remained incardinated in their diocese, and their bishop gave them assignments, changed their parish, and so on. The work gave and gives them spiritual encouragement to try to be good priests, holy priests. This help is the same as the lay members of the work receive, to try to live the message of sanctifying everyday things, circles, retreats, recollections, spiritual direction, etc. Today, this society is made up of some 4,000 priests from all over the world. Half of them already belonged to Opus Dei as numeraries before being ordained priests, and another 2,000 or so belonged to dioceses in many countries, such as the Philippines, the United States, Nigeria, Latvia, Chile, and Lebanon. I researched the history of this society through archives and interviews with some of these priests, the few still alive who applied for admission in the 50s of the 20th century, and others who applied for admission to this priestly society or Opus Dei in the 60s and after. It is a fascinating story about which I would like to tell three micro-stories. Jaume Font Espígole was born in Girona and was ordained priest there at the age of 23. He was also one of the first in that diocese to apply for admission to the Priestly Society of the Holy Cross in March 1954. He served in different villages of that diocese, such as in the Pyrenees. At that time, the village had no access roads. No wheeled vehicles, carts, or bicycles could get there, only on foot. All transport was done with packed mules, and explained Jaume, it was more expensive than the one from Madrid to Barcelona. Electricity and telephone had arrived in the village, and the postal service was also working, and working very well. Not that these things were going well for the good Mossen. Mossen is an Aragonese medieval way of addressing priests. That's why I chose him. Every Sunday he celebrated 3 masses and preached and heard confessions in his village in the Pyrenees. But according to what he said, most Sundays no one came to his confessional. He attended other churches in nearby villages, such as Rocabruna, and after walking a couple of hours on Sundays to get there, he would often find 7 children, 5 women, and 2 or 3 men at Mass, out of a total of 150 inhabitants in the village. Faced with this, Don Jaume asked himself in a letter, "The greatest temptation we have is the inefficiency of our work. Am I useful here?" This is the question I often ask myself. I don't have much work. I preach and everyone remains the same. I approach the faithful and many turn away. I get tired and they go their own way. I don't work anymore because I don't have any more work. Spain was a confessionally Catholic country, but religious practice in many parts of the peninsula were scarce. In any case, What encouraged Jaume Fontespígole in the midst of the cold and isolation was to feel that he was a member of a spiritual family, Opus Dei, which had opened its doors in 1950 to priests incarnated in dioceses. Thus, in his letter of application for admission dated the 1st of March, 1954, he said, "Since that day I have been living another life. I have truly been reborn into another life. I am more optimistic, more prayerful, more sacrificial, and poorer. I am happy, today as never before, regardless of the day of my ordination. I give myself to the work without hesitation or haggling. For Mécène Jaume, and for many other priests, feeling understood, helped, and accompanied by other priests of the work was a good help, I think." The second micro-story is that of José Dominguez. He is, because he is still alive and in good health, a man from Pontevedra born in 1932 in the parish of Santa Maria da Luneda, which overlooks Portugal. His mother supported him to go to the seminary and leave the village, where he looked after animals and earned some money, 100 pesetas a month, about 70 euro cents today, working in the mountains in reforestation. He had to look for a scholarship because his mother could not afford to pay for his studies. His father was a member of the Communist Party and had immigrated to Argentina before the Civil War. After the war, he took Don José's mother and his 2 brothers to Argentina. He tried to get his seminarian son to go to Argentina so that he would not become a priest. But Don José refused, was ordained a priest in 1960, and applied for admission to the Priestly Society of the Holy Cross. His humble origins and concerns for the simple people have marked the life of this priest. As a seminarian, he spent the summer months in Bilbao and Zaragoza, working in the naval workshops, rubbing shoulders with the workers. Later, his bishop assigned him to the parish of Lavadores, a neighborhood in Vigo known colloquially as Little Russia because of the many communists who lived there. He himself, he told me, thinks he would also have been a revolutionary in those years of the 60s and 70s of the 20th century, of great political turmoil in Spain, had it not been for Opus Dei. Moreover, his parish activity in the service of the diocese also led him to be chaplain for many years in a school in Vigo. He explained to me that he was never at the crossroads of choosing between prayer and action, worrying about the things of worship or helping those most in need. In fact, the Priestly Society of the Holy Cross helped him to put into practice much of what he had learned in the seminary about the inclusive nature of love for God and for others, particularly the poorest. The third story is that of Don José de Pedro. He was one of the sons of the postman of Hinojosa de Jarque in Teruel. His mother died when he was 9 years old. In 1957, when he was 26 years old and had been a priest for 2 years, he went to Peru to lend a hand to the territorial prelature of Yauyos, which the Holy See had entrusted to Opus Dei. Don José wrote every fortnight to his family, recounting his wanderings in Matucana, in the Peruvian province of Raurichiri. They kept the 100 or so letters he wrote to them during the 6 years he stayed in Peru. There he did literally everything, all the good things you could expect from a priest, of course. He was not a great catechist or a wonderful liturgist or a wise writer. His letters paint a more complete picture of a man than that. He gave sacraments to many people, baptisms, communions, anointings and visits to the sick, weddings. He gave catechesis and classes in a school for boys and girls. He made improvements in some churches and in the rectory, and renewed the ornaments and objects of worship. He distributed packages of food and clothes to those affected by landslides that dislodge stones and water and bury everything in their path. He also started a credit union to provide low-interest loans to local people who had lost everything in these natural disasters. In the first year of his stay there, he summed up some of his work. Until today, 18th of September, 1958, I have baptized 170 children. I have heard the confessions of 1,300 people. I have distributed 1,007 communions. I have performed 30 marriages, 300 sermons, 160 hours in a car, 70 hours on horseback, and 13 on foot. Every day I write these things down. I want to know, when I return, the sum of it all. The truth is that measuring the good that a priest can do is an impossible task in this world. I imagine that he did all he could, and that he did not lack the help of his bishop, Ignacio de Orbegozo, and the other priests of Yauyos, and the same when he returned to Teruel, the diocese of origin, where he served until his death in May 2020, in 12 parishes, among many other things that I do not have time to recount, nor you to hear about. What has the priestly society of the Holy Cross brought to these priests? It has helped them to have a spiritual life. As one of them said to me, the gift of God that we ordinary priests have a hunger for holiness, a hunger for God that always includes concern for others, for other priests in the first place, and for all the faithful. In short, it has helped them to be faithful to their priestly vocation. I think it encourages them to be loyal to their bishops and to the Pope, fulfilling the tasks entrusted to them and heeding the sacramental, pastoral, and magisterial orientations of the Church. It also encourages them to seek out young men from their parishes to go to seminaries, and finally by reminding them that they must sanctify themselves with their professional work, which is the ministry as a priest, then try to take care of the places of worship, and above all, to serve the parish communities, bringing spiritual consolation with the sacraments and accompaniment, alleviating, if they can, their material needs as the Church has always done. In short, the priestly society urges them to have a very big heart to welcome everyone and to serve everyone in whatever they need. It is, of course, a very high ideal. It is difficult for a historian to conclude whether every priest in this priestly society lives up to that ambitious aspiration. But I would venture to say that, in the first decades of its life, many priests of this priestly society believed in that ideal, and that in the last decades of the 20th century and the first decades of the 21st century, turbulent and difficult for the history of the Church and for societies where there are Christians, they have offered their fellow citizens the kind face of Jesus of Nazareth.